Welcome to the first episode of Inventors of Tech. The goal of Inventors of Tech is to explore the stories behind some popular open source projects created by unsung heroes. Coders who had the courage to do something about a problem they faced and found a solution ingenious and elegant enough to suddenly see their product widely adopted. We will explore why they started, what was the ingenious and elegant solution that kickstarted their product, how they deal with the challenges of popularity, and how they fund their free contribution to the world today. The first guest of Inventors of Tech is Kornel Lesiński, creator of imageoptim and PNG Quant2, and maintainer of Sparkle and mozjpeg. His code is used by millions of people around the world and contributes to better image compression everywhere. I am honored to welcome Kornel on Inventors of Tech today. Well, thank you so much, Kornel, for your time and accepting this kind of interview in a way. I wanted more to be a discussion around your projects. The idea of this that I call Inventors of Tech is really to explore the untold stories of so many cool open source projects that are, have a lot of impact because they're used by so many people, but often without actually knowing who created them and how and why they created them in the first place. So you're the creator of a lot of things. A lot of them are in the GitHub organization called imageoptim.
Yes. Yeah.
Some of the highlights I managed to gather, but I will need some more info from you. So of course there's the GUI that has like 6,000 stars. I also remember you telling me that one of the algorithms was in Adobe Photoshop. So I imagine it must, like, your code must be used by like hundreds of thousands of users. Do you have any actually idea on the numbers?
I don't actually, but it's been in a lot of places. I know Google uses it for their Google Doodles, for example.
Oh, wow.
So images compressed with some software reach very far.
Well, that's so you don't track the number of downloads on the imageoptim website, for example.
No, not really. Last time I checked, and that was years ago, I've crossed 1 million downloads.
Oh, that's cool. I remember, I mean, this is all like, souvenirs from previous discussion from a long time ago. But I remember you telling me that you had studied mathematics at university. That the funny anecdote, I don't know if I can share that one, that your first choice was computer science, but because you didn't get a good enough grade in mathematics, you ended up studying mathematics.
Yeah. Yes, and unfortunately, I didn't study for long because I'm just not that good at mathematics.
Okay, so you didn't. Okay. So that's the part of the anecdote I missed. And so for me, I was, of course, I was like kind of, trying to guess from this, but I thought, okay, image compression, that's like the intersection between mathematics and computer science. So that's why you're into image compression. Is that like a fair guess, or is that like completely not the right story?
Yeah, so I'm in an interesting position because I'm not an academic. I'm not officially a researcher, but I've been tinkering and doing practical stuff with image compression. So I did like non-academic research in the area. I started working on imageoptim while I was just a web developer.
Okay.
And I got interested in web performance and optimizations, and I was just dissatisfied with Photoshop, say for web, or with running a bunch of command line tools and just copying and pasting options all over and over again and switching from GUI to terminal. So I just wrote an app to solve my problem, scratch my itch, and use it as an excuse to learn Mac OS Cocoa programming. Once I've just glued a few tools together, I wanted to get more out of those tools. And especially PNG Quant was the first I really cracked open. So PNG Quant at the time was unique in its capability of creating small PNG files with alpha channel. If you had alpha channel and tried to export it in Photoshop, it would force you to choose between palette version but with GIF-like on-off transparency, or you had to go full into 24-bit, 32-bit full alpha channel PNG, which was really, really large. And in those days, you did not have a luxury of border radius or box shadow. So if you wanted, something rounded or shadowy on your web page, you had to make images for it. So the transparency was important sought after feature. And of course, it had to compress well. And Photoshop couldn't do it. So PNG Quant could do it, but it did a really poor job of it. So Photoshop, when it created a palette, it created a decent one, and PNG Quant kept alpha channel and had the palette to compress it better, but the palette was ugly, grayed out, and not really as precise as it could be. So I started tinkering with PNG Quant and seeing, what can I do to improve it. And fortunately, it got me hooked up because it had easy thing to fix. Like at the top of the source code, there was max colors variable and set to 3000. I've changed it to 300,000 and it suddenly worked better. And then I got deeper into it and actually changed the algorithm, researched how to do dithering and error diffusion properly, gamma correction, and many more details.
I have this souvenirs of you having Raspberry Pis all around your flat running the tests.
So it weren't Raspberry Pis because my tests work only on Macs, but
Okay.
it was like my personal Mac, my old Mac, my girlfriend's Mac. I added support to SSH to any Mac that I could to run the tests on it. Yes, because I
Oh,
had thousands of images, and if I just changed some variable in the code, it usually would improve or worsen things by like 1%. So to make a statistically significant measurement, I needed to test lots of images with lots of parameters. Uh, yeah, so I was cooking my CPU all day long. The initial website for it was absolutely awful. The icon was, I've just Googled how warning sign for crushing looks like and drew this. So it was like a guy being crushed between two things as initial icon. So the ugliness of the icon helped motivate people to contribute better icons to me. So
okay, yeah. That's because you're lucky to have like a community of designers, probably.
yes, so working with designers is great, yeah, because people designed website for me, designed icon for me. Um, Second version of the UI was designed by Chris Messina, also known as the inventor of the hashtag.
Oh, wow.
So yes, it's a small world, and yeah, if you create ugly software for designers, they'll force you to make it nicer. On the other hand, implementing compression algorithms for professional photographers is very difficult. They're super demanding. imageoptim used Sparkle framework for its software update, auto update, and that framework was not maintained by its original author anymore. So I've forked it, I've improved it, and I've ended up becoming the official maintainer. So now I maintain Sparkle, which is a huge piece of software in Mac. Like probably every other application that you have on your computer has Sparkle framework in it.
Oh,
If it's
wow.
not from the App Store and has auto updates, probably has Sparkle. So with contributions, you have to reach a really high popularity to
Mm.
even get any useful contributions.
Yeah.
So on imageoptim, 99.9% of the code is written by me. My
Wow.
audience is not programmers. Um, so, there's very little overlap between people who can contribute and have the itch to scratch to contribute. There's the other thing that if I write the code, if I fix everything, then I'm automatically setting expectations that I'll just continue fixing everything. So why bother?
Okay.
Um, only with Sparkle, only after I said, you know what, I'm so tired of it. I'm not writing any code anymore. Then I
Mm.
started getting much more contributions, and actually the project started rolling from contributions. So on
Oh
Sparkle, I'm
wow.
just the person who merges code now, rather than person who writes Sparkle. I've tried a few things. I've started with donations, and donations are good for buying a coffee.
Hmm.
Then before Patreon, there was a Git tip website.
Hmm.
So that was like 1 0 more in income
Okay.
from the patronage. And then I've tried dual licensing and
Hmm.
just selling commercial license to corporations, and that added 1 more 0 to the income.
Okay.
When I started doing it, I initially was afraid that people will get upset that I'm making it commercial and it's not really free software spirit and so on. But fortunately, nothing like that. And I actually got much better responses from companies. Like before, I
Mm.
tried to tell companies, please use my software, like improve your compression. I'm giving it for free. Just put it in your program and you will have better output. And I won't have to chase everyone in the world to fix your files. But there was like, nah, maybe. But once I'm a company and I give them a contract to sign and I charge them money, they somehow appreciate it more. Um, and they have the signed documents to show them to corporate lawyers who are then happy because they're buying software from a reputable company instead of getting software from some guy on the internet.
The dual licensing has really worked out for you in
Yes,
this
yeah.
example. Ah, that's really cool. That's really cool.
So
And like,
and I like it. I think that's the best of both worlds because the software is still available for free. PNG Quant, for example, is available in Linux distributions.
mhm.
They have no problem with free software licenses. But on the other hand, a bunch of companies that want to put a coffee in the App Store, well, Apple
Mm.
bans free software from App Store. Like
Okay.
it's completely
Yeah.
banned. Like free as in freedom rather than free as in beer
Mm.
or free labor for corporations. Yeah, if you want to put in the App Store, well, then there's money involved anyway, and that supports my development. One of the reasons why I went for the dual licensing as well is that I've noticed people are starting companies around my software. They're like, putting logo and credit card form on the software I wrote, uh, and it's their product, not mine. So
Oh,
that
wow.
made me feel kind of stupid. I should have done this. So eventually, I've
Mm.
done it too. And when you've just released a small project, you don't care about license. You're not
Mm.
starting a company. You've just wrote something for fun, so you give it for free. And then it grows, and then it becomes a serious project, and it takes as much as your effort as a day job, but
Mm.
it's still free because you want to be nice and just share and have people use it. But then, yeah, it becomes a core product of some corporation, and then you feel stupid. Like they've sold it for $1 million, and you don't have this $1 million. So,
Mm.
so at some point you realize, wait a minute, I'm just doing free work for that other company, and you don't want this to be that free that permissive anymore.
Mm. Your contribution to like society in a larger way is that in a way the more optimized the images, the less bandwidth, the less energy we can hope we're using. Is that something that you've thought about, and have you actually looked into it? Because for me, when I was thinking about that, I was like, do we waste more energy transporting bytes, or do we waste more energy actually compressing and decompressing on both sides?
Well, the assumption is you compress once and then you transfer it and decompress many, many times.
Hmm.
So I don't think you can uh, overdo the compression because the multiplier for publishing is so great.
And the decompression is not too expensive usually.
Yeah, decompression is generally much cheaper because
Okay.
you're not searching for all the possible combinations anymore. You're just given one particular combination to unpack. So it's so it's much easier. Um, and also, optimized images decompress faster because there's less data to decompress.
Yeah,
Decompression time is proportional to file size usually. Every piece of software should just make sure that it generates images that are as compressed as possible out of the box so that we don't have to tell people optimize your images. You don't have to chase them. Oh, your images are too fat. You haven't used the imageoptim. You're bad. Like, I don't want to do that. I just wish the problem didn't exist. One thing that I would like software makers to do is adopt mozjpeg library. Mozjpeg is a Mozilla project that started at Mozilla to improve the classic libjpeg. We have JPEG's spec from 1992. The library, I think, was done in 98, and it stayed almost unchanged except performance improvements, but the core algorithms stayed unchanged since the 90s. A couple of decades later, Mozilla said, wait a minute, we know how to do better with backwards compatibility, but more CPU effort. And computers are much faster, have so much more memory, so it's not an issue anymore. We can just compress JPEGs better out of the box. And it's implemented as completely backwards compatible, just plug into any piece of software and it will work library. And the idea was, since it's backwards compatible, you don't have to do anything other than take the old library out and put the new one in. Software would just adapt it and use it by default. But that hasn't happened. Which is super disappointing because I would like every piece of software that generates JPEGs to use mozjpeg immediately so that it doesn't have to go through recompression later.
What are your visionary prediction? Like, will mozjpeg be finally adopted? Who's going to drive adoption of these new things? Is green IT going to help?
So my prediction changes to possibly nothing changes substantially. So with imageoptim, I thought when it started becoming popular, I thought, okay, it's like probably the last year or two of its popularity, because once people figure out you have to optimize your images, the programs will improve, or we'll just get more bandwidth and people will stop caring about this at all. Or like new image formats will come around and obsolete all of the other formats. And that hasn't happened to a large degree. So, Google created a WebP format and heavily advertised it. Like every Google service will tell you to use WebP. But the adoption on the web is like just few percent of images. And as a format, it's not even that good. It turns out like if you optimize JPEG very well, it's competitive with the WebP format. So I'm still not out of business with this. There's a new format coming, AVIF, which is already available in Chrome Desktop. This one really halves sizes of images, and in terms of compression is way better than WebP, JPEG, and everything before it. But I don't think people will switch despite this being so much better, because it requires changes in all of your tooling, all of your workflow. Uh, it requires knowing that this format exists and you can use it in the first place, and even that is a barrier. Um, and of course, there's going to be backwards compatibility problems. So what I really notice is that there's a huge value in compatibility, because we use image formats not just for compression, but for interchange. So sometimes it's more important that everyone can just see your image and open it and remix it and share it and so on without getting errors or being asked to download special app. Then it's just then saving a few more bytes by switching to another format. I think for me the next problem is educating people about what the options are and how to use all the tools that they are there. Because tools have been available for many years, and I still find the completely unoptimized images, wrongly sized, not using even what is there. This is also disparity between people in the web performance community who know all the tricks and trying to squeeze extra performance of the latest image format, latest network protocols, and everything is super done, versus on the open web, like the average website is just terrible. It doesn't do even the basics.
Yeah, and it's very much about developer experience. Like the easier it is for dev to add good optimization step in their
Yeah.
process,
It's
the,
not,
the
sometimes
the
it's
more
not
the adoption.
even developer experience. For example, if you have a CMS and people managing the CMS can upload images, uh, if you don't add automatic resizing and optimizations to your CMS that does the right thing, then you cannot expect from non-technical person who just writes on the blog about the weather or something to be an expert in image formats and optimizers and do the file processing for you. So they'll probably take their camera or latest smartphone with multi-megapixel camera, upload huge file, and that's what you're gonna get served to everyone.
So hopefully, I'm an optimist. So I believe that this this kind of conversation will happen more and more, and people will start
Mhm.
enabling stuff. Well, uh, Kornel, thank you so much for your time. I love the conversation. Uh, I mean, it's incredible the where from tinkering with to learn Cocoa to having like millions of downloads. I hope we'll inspire some people to contribute, donate if they want, use the commercial license if they're a company, and or start their own project if they feel inspired.